top of
you a
him.
question?
Sure.
How do you think that we should defeat Islamic terrorism or defeat terrorism in general?
I'll tell you how. The job number one, just like in the previous wars, job number one is to identify the enemy. It might sound strange, it's like, well, I mean, we know what it is, but apparently not, because because
at the FBI, the FBI interviewed activists like me at the Cleveland RNC. Is that like identifying the enemy? What you mean? Because I know that.
What I mean by that is that when there's a war against the Russians, for instance, to use this an example, there was a clear there was no gray area. You are like, to quote George Bush, for instance, you're either with us or you're against us. There's a red menace. Full stop. There is not like pinkish menace or maybe, light red menace. No, there was the red menace. When we were fighting the Nazis, they were, this Nazi, this funny mustachioed kind of people.
All state actors.
When we were fighting the Japanese, they were the Japs. They were subhumans. And I'm sorry
to put them in concentration camps.
No, I mean, forget about what happened here in America with the Japanese.
I'm talking. 400,000 Americans who were protected under the Constitution were unjustly jailed.
That's irrelevant.
That's
irrelevant at this point.
No, that's a relevant question.
What was? Look,
because that was unjust.
It was. Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
So I agree with the Constitution.
Yes, it was. But look at the big picture. Look at the big picture. Yes, it was an injustice. I'm with you. I agree with that.
Thousands.
Okay, fine, thousands.
No, but that and the concentration camps.
There's a huge difference. Concentration. How many people came in off the concentration camp or death camp?
Died
so how many Japanese died? There's a fundamental difference between two. Those were not concentration.
140,000 Japanese died when we dropped the atomic bombs on a defeated country.
Well, we're talking about, first of all.
Let's not get off topic.
The topic. Wait. We are on topic. You brought up the interned Japanese. The internment, I agree. It wasn't maybe the right thing to do. I mean, looking back, hindsight is always 20/20. But when you draw the parallels, between the internment camps and the concentration camps, that's what I adamantly, absolutely disagree with. Because how many Japanese died in the internment camp? I mean, did you see the pictures how they live in internment camps? Well, it wasn't a cakewalk, whatever the saying goes in English.
I think the U.S. government's above that.
But dropping the atomic war saved by some calculations close to 1 million American lives.
Robert J. Oppenheimer said. Do you know who Robin J. Oppenheimer is?
Of course I know, a traitor. Of course, this bastard.
Spoke out before and after against
I don't
the dropping of the nuclear bomb.
I don't care what he was saying.
What he said was that we're firing a bomb on a defeated country that doesn't need to happen. And to hear the testimony from a nuclear survivor who said that she was walking away and she saw football fields of bodies after she climbed out of a burning building, and there was people falling on the ground with their eyeballs in their hands and their stomachs falling out from the radiation.
Did you hear about Batam March, for instance? Do you know what that is? A Batam, I think that was called March.
Yeah.
In the Philippines.
And listen, I'm not saying no justice.
How are you going to feed the enemy? How? I mean, give me a solution. I wish we could deal with them with the kids' gloves. I wish, but the only thing that I understand. War is war, by definition. Either kill or be killed. It sounds harsh, but that's what it's all about. And the most important thing is that we were not the ones who started it. Had December 7th never happened, do you think we would have been at war with the Japanese? Do you think we would have a need to drop any atomic bombs? What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I think that if Pearl Harbor didn't happen, then maybe we would have not been involved in the war. But I know that U.S. Forces before that were plotting and wondering if we side with the Japanese or if we side with the Chinese, who will give us the better benefits. And Japan ultimately didn't allow American forces to gain in the exploitation of China during the Civil War. So we sided with Pearl Harbor. That made our decision final. That made our decision final.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, I'm against all killing, my friend.
What's that?
Right? I'm against all killing, and thank you for having this democratic discussion with me. It's democracy.
Sure.
But,
we started off with how to defeat the scourge of Muslim terrorism. So, I mean, what's your solution?
What's my solution?
Yeah, I mean, how are you going to...
One thing that we need to do, and I did a great study on Islamic State's ideology. I actually did it for my final project in my modern Middle East class. I was a freshman, so I took a 400-level Middle East class in order to further educate myself about Middle East issues.
Sure, what did you learn?
So what did I learn? I analyzed the 19... This is my pride and joy. This work.
Sure,
right
go ahead.
But
I'll be more than happy to hear.
I analyzed 19 issues of Dabiq, the Islamic State's magazine. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Yeah.
but this is their magazine and their publication. So they use this as ideological support for their terrorist activities. So what they do in it, I picked out quite a few things. So one thing that
Let me get a little closer.
Okay,
because
yeah, one thing
you're losing,
that
the sound.
I learned about the leader, the caliphate, which is this is the first time Osama bin Laden and the other terrorist groups, Ansar al-Islam and Osama bin Laden, decided not to declare a caliphate because that would have been too heavy for them. They couldn't do that without the proper legitimacy. So this guy who decided to declare the caliphate,
Al-Baghdadi,
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, al-Husseini, al-Muslim,
You spent a lot of time memorizing his name.
Yeah.
Okay.
So al-Husseini, al-Qushayri. So what his full name is, Abu Bakr was the first Muslim leader who started the Ridda Wars back in the day after the Prophet Muhammad died. So he's the first successor of the Rashidun, the first four prophets who started, conquering tribes around them who were disagreeing with them. So he did that. Al-Baghdadi means that he's shows his local origins to Baghdad. Al-Husseini gives some legitimacy to Hussein. If you know the Shiite movement.
Legitimacy in your eyes?
No,
or
not legitimacy in my eyes, but in the eyes of Sunni Muslims and Shia Muslims. That gives him legitimacy to rule over Shiite Muslims. So Al-Husseini is that fourth person who was died and martyred. So that gives him more ideological force. Al-Qushayri gives him more. And then one thing I would want to point out very specifically is that when Islamic State talks about Saudi Arabia, they use quotations and call them a Crusader state because they deny the legitimacy to the Saudi Arabian government. And his use of Al-Qushayri gives him legitimacy over Kaaba, which is the black stone in Mecca. So that gives him this superseding legitimacy over all the secular and religious.
So what's the conclusion?
What's the conclusion?
Yeah, after you did all this.
That if we want to destroy ISIS, then we need to stop. One thing that fuels their propaganda machine is this dissemination that there's a Muslim world and a Western world.
So there is. Wait. Let me stop you for a second.
Yeah.
So you think that there is no difference between Western civilization and the Muslim civilization?
Gandhi said about Western civilization when he was asked in 1954? Gandhi said Western civilization would be a great idea. Because, in all senses, we commit just as much violence as countries across the world. And to have, this belief that we are a Western country gives us, this American exceptionalism that makes us stand out above, that all our actions will always be just and good over the actions of others, which is,
You don't believe in American exceptionalism?
No, I don't believe that American exceptionalism.
So we're like any other country in the world, like Russia, like Brazil, like...
and rest in peace, Brazil. That's a very sad situation there.
Like I don't know, like Somalia. So we're like any other country in the world.
What we did in Somalia the other day, which was bomb 150 people we deemed as militants, which under military code really means nothing.
So we are like Somalia in your words.
So what I'm saying
is that
America is a participant in worldwide violence, and as Americans, we need to say enough is enough. We need to stop the violence here, home, and abroad. And no more, no killing will solve anything else. One thing I want to say about Syria right now is that. Talk to the family. Like, I wonder how the families feel of those 100 civilians who were killed in a bomb strike, or the wedding convoy in Yemen that was hit by a drone strike. If I was part, if someone in those families felt, why would somebody do this? Why would someone do this to my country and my family?
How do you feel about 3,000 people who died on 9/11 in my own city, in my own country? How do you feel about that?
I think that.
Do you feel compassion for them?
I do feel compassion for them.
And what are you going to do about it? This is the largest loss of life in the U.S. soil.
Yeah,
really, civilian life. What are you going to do about it? What's the solution? We started the war when fewer people died, and most of them were military personnel at Pearl Harbor. We started the war. They took the lives of about 500,000 of our soldiers. Here in the heart of New York City, not a remote island, not a military base, we lost 3,000 people. What would you do if you were the president? What would you do?
If I was the president?
Yeah.